Camarajos everyone, do you have an enemy? If you don't, well, you're definitely going to have an enemy by end of this video. Camera's reflection in objects like windows, mirrors, digital screens, reflective furniture, and shadows. These reflective objects on a shoot or whenever a videographer is filming, it is a struggle to avoid camera's reflection. To avoid camera's reflection seen on a reflective object, by moving the tripod and using a zoom lens like this 18 to 135mm UCM, and this is a Canon lens, and you can zoom into that object that you're trying to zoom into. Right now on the Canon 80D is a 10 to 18mm STM. The way I filmed this footage is the bathroom was a very small space. The equipment that I used is a monopod. I used two lenses, a 10 to 18mm lens and a 18 to 135mm lens. The reason I used a monopod because I was in a very small room, bathtub, and here was the sink. Here's the door area, toilet. The monopod was in the corner. And for that reason is I wanted to get that angle of the two mirrors. Of course you can film one mirror, but in the situation that I wanted to show an example of what happens when you film two mirrors. So the first shot, when I came into the room and I looked at the mirror. Then I filmed a second shot where I zoomed in to where the sink is. Then a third shot that I filmed is I moved the monopod over here. I angled the camera upward to the mirror. And that's why you won't see a tripod behind me. Monopod, and this would be the camera. And this would be the mirror. Hallway, then I put the monopod on the stairs. And that's how I filmed that footage. Of course, there are different ways you can film, but this is really the basic way you can film in this very tight room situation. Of course, you can use a 50mm lens, also is really good. If you want to get some bokeh, just so that the audience can focus on one specific scene that is going on. That's where bokeh helps to make sure that the viewer, his eyes are focused on that one scene. His eyes are not scattered all over the place and he's trying to concentrate on other things. And that viewer is only concentrated on only one specific scene that is going on. A actor or actress, if they're doing a certain facial expression, then you would use a portrait lens like the 50mm lens. So the viewer can only focus on the actor or actress. In this situation, a tripod won't work because you won't have a lot of room to walk around. There's not a lot of room to work with a tripod. In the footage, you would notice that where the two mirrors are, in between those two mirrors, you would notice that the screen of the DSLR is seen. And then on the second mirror, you would notice that the DSLR is sticking out a little bit. Of course, you can mask that. That is a whole process to do that, to mask out that reflection of the camera that has been seen on the mirror of the angle, which is actually a really good example that I did that mistake. It actually shows you, viewer, that when you're a one-man band and you're filming, it's easy to move the tripod to a different position, put a zoom lens or put a 50mm lens. With bokeh, you could lie to the viewer of the actor or actress more in sharp, and then in the background you can somehow blend in the camera with the bokeh. Also, what you can do is, let's say for an example, you're filming in front of a microwave and you see that camera's reflection. You can use a chroma key, a black chroma key. If you have a whole crew, you have the boom mic, you have the person who holds the lights, the third person who holds a reflector, you got the dollies, you got a lot of things moving. then it's a whole different ball game. And especially when you're moving the camera, you definitely have to see where that reflection is. Choose a position that angles the reflection off axis. That way it would be easier and you don't have to mask anything out. And it will be very, very easy to edit and you don't have to worry about masking. But you definitely, in the scenario that you are, make sure that when you're on a film shoot in a scenario, make sure that the reflective objects will not bother you so that you would have a stress-free filming in that scenario. To avoid reflections on a vehicle, this is where a polarizer is needed. Putting the polarizer filter on the lens. The polarizer filter has I think it's like 1 or 2 stop of neutral density. So I need to turn up my ISO. By turning the polarizer filter, you would notice that the reflections are disappearing. Yes, there are some reflections on the vehicle, but it mostly removed those reflections when you're going to be filming around the vehicle. So polarizer filter definitely works on a vehicle. And here is a difference. So if I take out the polarizer filter, this is without a polarizer filter, and this is with the polarizer filter. So by turning the polarizer filter, you notice it removes the glare. So if I do the windshield, now you can see your actor or actress sitting in the driver's seat. I reviewed this polarizer filter. This is a Gobe polarizer filter. The video will be linked in the description box down below. But this is a decent polarizer filter. Polarizer filter definitely removes reflections. With vehicles, it is best to have a bright color of a vehicle. Then it's easier and you would have less reflections. With a darker color of a vehicle, it's much more difficult to work around, especially if you're moving that camera and you're filming that vehicle. With sunglasses, you can use a dull spray, but make sure that spray is easy to clean out. But if you're just purchasing cheap sunglasses, then yes, you can use a spray that is permanent on those sunglasses for that actor or actress to wear. If you want to keep that shiny reflection of sunglasses, then what you have to do is angle the camera in an angle rather than in front. With phones and TV screens, it's best to have a bright white color when the phone is on rather than a dark black, because what happens when it's black, that glass would reflect camera's reflection. For example, this is just a white wallpaper, and you would notice that you won't see the reflection of the camera scene on the phone. So having a bright colors, it will definitely work, and you won't see camera's reflection on the reflective device or TV screen. Once you have a huge crew and you're already making films or a commercial or an awesome video that you want to upload to the internet, when you're working with a crew in filmmaking, it is important to make sure that camera's reflections are not seen. The key to all this, especially if you're moving, once it's set on a tripod or monopod, then it's easy to work. You put a zoom lens, you put a polarizer filter, you made sure that all the reflections of objects are gone. You made all the furniture that there's no reflection of cameras. Of course, it's easy to work with a stationed tripod, monopod, and camera, and all the lighting and reflectors are all set. But if you're moving with a gimbal, and on that gimbal is a camera, and you're moving, and there's objects that could reflect that cameras, the key is choreography. And choreography is like waltz. It's like the waltz dance. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, move. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, move. And with that symmetry, you get a nice film. Without choreography, there won't be no smoothness in that footage. So choreography is very key. Even if you're a one-man band And it is never a one-man band. It is difficult to film as a one-man band. There's so much that you have to do as a one-man band. So with a small crew or a large crew, it's easy to work. To make that crew work, there needs to be choreography. There needs to be symmetry in the movements. Then you won't have reflections of cameras, or cameras of reflections in reflective objects. And the enemy is reflective objects. If you thought this video was helpful, share it. If you liked this video, click the like button, click the notification bell to get notified when there's a new video, and also subscribe. Be brave, avoid reflective objects that your camera won't be seen in a reflective object. Until next time.